It's about creating a model society. And that's what Varnashram, because who can create the most model society? The person who designed the entire creation and gave law books, gave exacting descriptions of how to organize society. That is all given in Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by Lord Krishna, spoken by God. So if we want to get the real understanding, we have to go to the source, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that includes all people from all traditions. People from all traditions can come together with this understanding, how to mold their life according to their natural tendency and offer their fruits for the satisfaction of God, for the betterment of human society.
Bingo bango.
Srila Prabhupada, it's often quoted, and I hear it on different days, that Srila Prabhupada came to build a house in which the whole world would live.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Now think about that for a second. That house is not ISKCON.
Right.
ISKCON is a Brahmanically oriented society. It will never be, even for persons that are in, even for Brahmanas, it's sometimes difficult to stay within ISKCON.
Right.
Varnashrama is that house.
Right. That's a beautiful point.
I can't comprehend why you're killing me. I don't understand why you're pulling me down. We see the same sun going up. We walk the same ground. Brahmasmi. Brahmasmi.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Eighth Element podcast. My name is Buzz Ryan.
I'm Garg Zallard.
And our special guest is?
Vaninath Vasu Das.
Whoa, an elevated soul, nonetheless, and we are so grateful to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Today we are going to be discussing with Vaninath, before we give a little introduction on your background, the Varnashram Dharma, or kind of the model for a new society based on the models for the ancient civilization in India. And we'd love to hear you expound on these very, very seriously important principles as we look to the new age coming up and how we can actually bring society to a state of peace, sustainability, and spiritual culture. Gargs, take it away.
So Vaninath Vasu hails from Pensacola, Florida, and he came to Gainesville in 1973, where he studied chemical engineering at the University of Florida. And is that where you met the devotees?
Yes, it was a plaza program, was right across from the chemistry building.
Did you get a lot of prasadam?
It was a little interesting situation. I was a member of a fraternity at the time, still a member, and eating with the devotees in the central public place didn't really fit in with the profile. So I would get prasadam, but I would take it to a place where I could eat it where nobody would see me. So that was how I participated at that point. And of course, I got Srila Prabhupada's books, magazines, and although I didn't understand most of what I read, but I kept them along with other materials in my apartment, to show the broad range of materials that I was consuming.
So you must have consumed them pretty voraciously, because by 1975 you took initiation from Srila Prabhupada here in Gainesville. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct.
Awesome. So then you served in the Gainesville Yatra for many years. You have been the temple president in Alachua, Orlando, Tallahassee, Chicago. How do you pronounce it? Champaign-Urbana in Illinois, Phoenix. And you are the founder of the Institute for Advanced Social Design, DBA, speaking about Vanashram.com. And you have an upcoming book coming out called 4 Simple Steps to Establish Varnashram.
So, this is such an important subject matter, as we see in many corners of the world, societies and culture almost imploding. And people are looking for what is the proper model for a peaceful, harmonious society. And I know that you've done a lot of study in this regard based on the directives given by Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is all of our spiritual mentors. Although he passed on in 1977, his instructions have left an indelible impression on all of us, and I know for certain for you. And we also know that Srila Prabhupada stated in his final days that he was lamenting, in a sense, that 50% of his work was not completed, which he clearly stated was to establish this Varnashram system. So perhaps we could start out with you explaining what is this Varnashram, why it is so important, and then perhaps we could segue into these 4 steps to implement, because it's a kind of a question. It's been a quandary of debate for many years in certain sectors of what actually is this, ordering of society, and how do we make it relevant in the modern context?
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for the kind introduction. One of the things that I need to, divulge immediately, I'm a fairly newcomer to the attempt at reestablishing Varnashram. I had my wife look up some information for me today, and so that I could mark where I began this current interest for myself. And it was 2017. So there have been a number of devotees that have been involved with the effort to reestablish Varnashram, much longer than I've been involved. And the reason why I bring that up is that I have to acknowledge some of the confusion is because you can find in writing where Srila Prabhupada says that Varnashrama is, in this modern age, is not possible. And you can find where he's spoken that repeatedly, that is not possible, that only by the chanting of Hare Krishna will anything be done in the age of Kali. So you can find that. And what I wanted to share is then I guess I would say a critical part of looking at Srila Prabhupada's instructions is the chronological order of them. And most of our attempts at looking at Varnashram are not chronological in terms of Srila Prabhupada's statements. So you can go to the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you'll find places where Srila Prabhupada, in writing, states that Varnashrama is not possible. And I'll read you something from a later canto. Among the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, the Kali Yuga is the worst. But if the process of Varnashrama Dharma is introduced, even in this age of Kali, the situation of Satya Yuga can be invoked. The Hare Krishna movement, or Krishna consciousness movement, is meant for this purpose. That's from the 9th canto, which of course was Srila Prabhupada translated and commented on later than the first canto.
So his later writings.
His later writings, and also his later speaking as well, and I wanted to look at that. So here's something that introduces, and this is a broader topic than even Varnashram. Srila Prabhupada saying something in one context, not even a context, directly stating it's not possible, and then stating it is possible, and not only is it possible, it is actually our mission. How do you reconcile those two things? So for myself, as a fairly simple person, I look at the chronological order. If this was stated at one time earlier and this was stated later, then I take the later statement. And also, just recently I was thinking about that in regards to Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. At that time, we didn't have the type of instantaneous communications that we have now. So the situation was Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and devotees were coming and going, and oftentimes we'd get information about his plans, his health, etc., from someone coming back to the West by airplane. In other words, the message was carried by a person as quickly as they could come. And then also there were letters sometimes that were sent out in regards to Srila Prabhupada's statements. So oftentimes we were getting in one day contradictory statements that Srila Prabhupada is doing this is his state, or he's going to do this, and this is his state. And we didn't know which to believe, and we'd have to look at, okay, well, when did this person get that information, and when did this person get that information, in order to get a clear picture of where things were going. But be that as it may, this is an important point, and I'm so happy to see that you have the book speaking about Varnashram,
Right.
because that is arranged chronologically. And with that, you get a chance to see the difference between Srila Prabhupada's statements earlier in his spreading of Krishna consciousness and those statements that come later. And that is something that, for a number of devotees, is still, I don't think they've gone into the subject matter to that depth. They read that Srila Prabhupada states here it's not relevant, and so they basically, they don't have to go any deeper than that, which in one sense is a proper response to such a statement. But then when you come across these statements later, it produces some confusion. And whenever we're confused, we don't move forward. So it's a genuine, and the reason why I mentioned my 2017, because I was in that same boat myself. I had things that were going on in my life, and I had to attend to those things. And figuring out the particulars of Varnashram, this statement versus that statement, I didn't invest that much time into it. So then the question could come up, like, well, how did you start? It was almost an accident.
So yeah, that's the question. How did you start? I'll pose the question.
So I attended an event where a sannyasi was speaking about Vedic culture and explained that the economic basis for society was the grihastas. And then he made the further nuance that actually only just really one half of the grihasta ashram, because generally the women...
Grihasta meaning the married
householders,
which means married couples, for those who are not familiar with our terminology, or the Vedic terminology.
And then he clarified it, said even half of that, because the women generally didn't work outside of the home. So
in the Vedic system.
In the Vedic system. So then I looked at also in the Vedic model, amongst the Varnas, where does the economic engine lie? So I looked at the Varnas. These are the occupational in the traditional Vedic system. Brahmanas, their attention is elsewhere. Their attention is on spiritual and teaching. So they're not an economic source. And then, of course, there's the general workers, which in the traditional system, they are maintained by their work, but they are not an economic engine. And the Vaishyas, just as described in Krishna book, they're very rich in natural resources, the produce of the land, etc. Or as a gentleman that lived next door to the Alachua temple told me, he said, a farmer will always have plenty to eat, and he'll have an old raggedy truck and a car. But he won't be rich, farming is not for...
So the Vaishyas were the agriculturists, but also they were mercantile men as well.
Mercantile, trading in the surplus of production. Trading in the surplus of production.
Would bankers fit into that?
Well, bankers, and it's interesting, the banking that was done is in relationship to the mercantile activities, because oftentimes whenever there's a bad season or even someone starting out, oftentimes they'll need something advanced to them, either in the form of money or grains, so that they can begin their planting, etc. That's a common feature. And if even traditionally, that in terms of banking, that's a lot of that centered around that. And it's an important kind of not a buffer, but or a pressure gauge, but it's an important facility to have for the agriculturalists. So it was tied in with that agriculture mercantile.
You also saw that more in like early America as well.
It's traditional. It's traditional. So then I looked at Kshatriyas, and there you see
So Kshatriyas meaning the kind of the martial class, the kind of the leader class, the administrative class, and the warrior class.
And the politicians, right?
correct. All of those things, and essentially these are the movers and doers in terms of society, and they have a great responsibility, even beyond just those those activities. They also have responsibility in terms of the spiritual growth along with the brahmanas for society. And that's important to mention that, because we have a term that's important to understand, rajarshis. It meant that they were rulers, but they were also saintly persons by character. How they applied it, though, was to be that element within society to make sure that it stays on track. Whereas the brahmanas have a similar role, but they don't do much in terms, besides their speaking and educating, they are not equipped nor mandated to do much to correct society.
So Raja is like royalty, and Rishi is like a sage or a spiritual person.
Correct.
So when you said so they would the Brahmins or the priestly class would advise the rulers, who would act on, and they would advise them, especially to keep them spiritually uplifted, but also on sometimes political matters, how to rule in a righteous way. And then the Kshatriyas, or the ruler class, or the leaders, would administrate, they would enact the laws. But you also mentioned as a Rajarshi that they would keep society on track. Can you clarify, that in terms of Rajarshi, what that means for our audience?
Well, from the Bhagavad Gita itself, if you go to the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is a standard book of spiritual education, the parampara that's laid out there is one of the Kshatriyas, starting with the history of the Bhagavad Gita being given to Kshatriyas. It mentions Vivaswan, Ishvaku, Manu. All of these are Kshatriyas. So the basic information, and Srila Prabhupada even in the purport says that this Bhagavad Gita is especially meant for Kshatriyas. And in the purport he goes on to elaborate, because it was their duty to see that these principles were implemented in human society. So they take the spiritual information, and through culture, education, all of these things that they enact and support, this is how they would influence society to continue on spiritually, and also to make sure that even their material needs are also met. So they had this dual role to be accomplished in their duties.
Now, in the United States where we live, it's a principle about the separation of church and state, and people are they're concerned. Sometimes they're paranoid that one particular religion might become dominant, or it may become oppressive, where people have to follow a certain religion or something, along that nature. So I think that's perhaps one of the potential obstacles that would convince people to go along with the Varnashram system. And also they may point to the caste system as well, where power was condensed and people were oppressed because they were like in the lower castes and whatnot.
Yes, these are concerns, and Srila Prabhupada addressed these concerns by stating all of this requires simply training. With proper training, all of these things are addressed. The Rajarshis, they were trained from a very young age, just as we have professions now in engineering, doctors. They take their knowledge and they apply it, but there's training involved with that. Consider the modern circumstance where we have leaders of countries all over the world. How many have been trained for those positions? We're in the West, particularly,
they're groomed for the positions for specific purposes, but not necessarily for, to bring everyone up to a higher consciousness or to move a society.
Certainly not. So We actually don't have an example currently for persons to reference, and so there's naturally some fear, and it's warranted based on their experience. But what we're describing here is something that's completely different. And this, before we go farther with that part, which is an important point, I think it's important to look at, from the perspective of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, his particular vision, having seen all of this and having also experienced what you mentioned as far as the caste system, his emphasis on the importance of the Varnashram for the future of human society. So there is something that I'd like to read, and once again, the date on this is really important. This is from February 14th, 1977. And for those of us, those listening who are not aware, Srila Prabhupada passed away in November of that same year. So this was very current in terms of his thinking. Once again, when you look at things chronologically, you can go back to some days, some years years prior, where this was completely, I would say, opposite of what Srila Prabhupada said.
So in a sense, there was an evolution of Srila Prabhupada's understanding and his kind of assessment and assimilating this high knowledge in relation to the current cultural zeitgeist that he was experiencing. And he was kind of working it out in relation to what divine inspiration he was getting, how to implement this ancient system in the context of modern culture. But it was an evolution of understanding for him.
But he also laid the groundwork, because he said 50% of my work is already done.
Now, let's chew on both of those statements there for a little bit. And that's the question I was attempting to bring up regarding a philosophical question. Was it always Srila Prabhupada's vision in regards to that? There are persons that I've talked to, and they point to certain things, such as a paper that you may remember called the Gita Nagari Prophecy. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
This was written in 1950, I want to say 59, where Srila Prabhupada lays out what is essentially Varnashram.
Whoa.
And
so, but still, there's more.
That's interesting.
So that's one perspective, and I have to find a reference to this. Someone else also mentioned another writing where the same was presented. So was it Srila Prabhupada's idea that he was giving us what we could digest in a very short period of time, and gradually introducing these other things? That's one perspective. Another perspective, when I was talking with Abhiram Prabhu, he was saying that Srila Prabhupada regularly called him, oftentimes in the middle of the night, as he was thinking about spreading Krishna consciousness, and he would talk with those who were there and get their opinions on, what do you think? And he was asking us not like rhetorically that I'm going to ask you this question and I'm going to give you the answer. He wanted to hear from his disciples, what do you think? So I don't try to say it was this way or that way. And I honestly don't know. But there is a difference. Now, you use the word of evolution. Some persons will have a difficulty with using that word just in regards to Srila Prabhupada. So whether it was that, but there is a difference. That is what I want to make very clear. So this is from 1977. In one sense, for myself, this is personal, this statement is more important for our society than Srila Prabhupada's 50% statement. If you'll notice also, just to go a little aside, in this book, that statement about 50% is there. It's at the back of the book, and I think that was very intelligent for Hare Krishna Dasi to have done it that way. By the time you go through this book, reading the statements of Srila Prabhupada, when you come to that statement, it does not seem out of line. It doesn't seem like it's a big revelation based on the things you've heard Srila Prabhupada say prior to that.
I knew her in New England in the early 80s, by the way.
Okay, all right. So that's an important point in terms of where that sits within Srila Prabhupada's statements. This statement that I'm going to share with you here Well, let me just read it. It's that on big scale, you cannot make everyone a brahmana or sannyasi. That is not possible. Now, let's just take that one statement there. Our training, the Hare Krishna movement, and our training and our influencing is Brahminically oriented till today, almost exclusively. We don't bother with much else. It is exclusively Brahminically oriented. In 1977, Srila Prabhupada is telling us that on big scale, you can't do this. Now, I've had to
Can't do this, meaning can't do.
make everyone a brahmana
Right.
or a sannyasi. So
Okay.
if someone
again, Brahmin means the priestly class, the saintly kind of renounced people.
Or you could say everybody live in a temple.
Yeah.
all of those things,
Yeah.
all of the above, ashram, 4 regulative principles,
Right.
all of that is Brahminically oriented. So Srila Prabhupada said that is not possible. Then another statement, this is a small scale. Now, 1977, what were you doing in 1977?
I was living in the Chicago temple, and I was
Kishore ki jai,
Kishore, Uttama Shloka was the president.
Uttama Sloka.
And yeah, I was doing different duties. I was doing some, Sankirtan and, many different duties.
Devotees were going to O'Hare Airport daily, risking sometimes their lives to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, tremendous sacrifice, living austerely. I was traveling, sleeping in vans, all sorts of things that we were doing to serve Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada was aware of this as well.
I was playing Pony League baseball.
Okay, I didn't ask you about our Pony League baseball. Okay. But the point is that Srila Prabhupada was aware of the sacrifices that the devotees were making. Why would he say this is small scale? Now, okay, another important point. He was leading the society. There was no other, in terms of, Srila Prabhupada said something, that was the law.
I would say that why he said this is small, because he was seeing there's only a very small percentage of the population, very small. They're going to live in a more monastic setting. And if this knowledge is to spread with width and depth throughout society, there has to be a systematic cultivation of society in general that everyone can participate in.
But were we thinking that in 1977? That's
He was rethinking it.
he was thinking that, but
Right.
his disciples, were we thinking that?
No.
Personally.
No, we weren't, because we were used to one mode of living and thinking.
But there was something else going on too. Like, let's say when I started going to the temple in 82 and I joined in 83, there was this idea of doing the needful. So even though it's the Brahminical situation going on, everything is going toward that. Devotees are, you wash the pots, you do this, you go out, you do this. So people weren't necessarily acting according to their own nature, and they weren't necessarily acting externally according to Brahminical activities all the time. Of course, pujari work or giving class or something like that. But some devotees were administrative, like you were a temple president in a number of places. So that was going on even within the Brahminical society.
Correct. Because even amongst Brahmanas, you need, someone has to organize the schedule. That doesn't make them a Kshatriya. Someone has to balance the checkbook. That doesn't make them a Vaishya. They're even amongst those persons. Even amongst the Vaishyas, they had leaders also. The benediction offered in the narration of Prithu Maharaj talks about if you're a Vaishya, you become the leader of many Vaishyas. It doesn't mean he then becomes a Kshatriya. He's just, even within these groups, you'll have leaders. So that's there.
And there were devotees who felt like they weren't acting according to their own nature, so they had a need also.
Yes. So all of those things were there, but the language that Srila Prabhupada uses here. So once again, this is a small scale. How many percentage of people in the world we are controlling? Very insignificant. Now this in one sense could be taken as somewhat harsh language, because we're out doing, really giving it all our youth, as Prabhupada said. And we understood that Srila Prabhupada appreciated that we were giving our youth for spreading Krishna consciousness. So this kind of seems like almost if someone were just to take those two statements that they're not appreciating.
We were on a mission.
Yes. We were on a mission. That's so Srila Prabhupada says, though, it's very...
Wait a second. Did the Blues Brothers, they didn't become Krishna devotees, did they?
Maybe they were closet devotees, but they never told anyone.
Yeah.
But so here, Srila Prabhupada makes a comparison, and that's where these statements come from. But if you want to make the whole human society perfect, then this Krishna consciousness movement should be introduced according to Krishna's instruction. Now, what is that instruction? Srila Prabhupada clarifies. If you want to do it in a larger scale for the benefit of the whole human society, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said par upakar. Par upakar means mass benefit. Then we have to introduce this Varnashrama Dharma. It must be done perfectly, and it is possible, and people will be happy.
When Prabhupada uses the word perfect or perfectly, what do you think he means?
In this context, he's giving importance to how to do it. And then later he talks about his instructions are how to do it perfectly. In other words, follow Krishna's instructions. Not that our activities will be perfect in terms of that, but follow Krishna's idea. Do not come up with your own idea in regards to Varnashram.
If we could just not back up, but take a pause and give a description for those who are not familiar with this Varnashram. Can you, before we go and dive into this, because this is very powerful, because he's talking about how to enact a system, you could say a system of governance, a system of ordering society, so that everyone will become happy. I mean, that was his...
fulfilled.
That was his, happy, fulfilled, interchangeable. That was his intention, as was God's intention. Krishna, God, same person. Krishna means the all-attractive, supreme Godhead. So their intention of the Supreme Lord and his representatives was how to implement a system in society of organizing society so that all would be happy. So can you explain in a kind of a simple way what is Varnashram and what are the Varnas, what are the ashrams? And then we can dive deeper into this.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes. Srila Prabhupada used an example found in the Vedic literatures themselves, an analogy of the human body. Used it repeatedly, that within the human body we have a head that has a particular function, we have arms that have a function, belly, and legs, broad systems, integrated but distinct, integrated, unity in diversity. So this is a similar example used to describe Varnashram, that we have the Brahminical class, which uses intelligence primarily as the head of society. We have the Kshatriyas, who are the persons who take the same type of spiritual education, spiritual knowledge that the Brahmanas have, the teachers, and they are ordering society actively. The Brahmanas are ordering society subtly. I heard it described also in the Mahabharata, that the Brahmanas protect society from invisible dangers, and the Kshatriyas protect society from visible dangers.
Oh, that's
I like
fascinating.
that.
I love that.
Yeah, it clarifies, and it's just like parents, a husband and a wife, how they might interact and take different responsibilities for their children. The mass of people are seen like that as the children of society. So those are there. And then the belly, this is the class or the persons who have the responsibility that make sure that society has the material needs that are the material necessities: food, clothing, shelter,
And money.
money, means of interaction and exchange of goods in a very simple way. One of the features of the entire system is being organized in such a way that none of these positions are not only not exploited, but they also don't become excessive. Persons are not excessive in terms of their needs. They're not excessive in terms of the word I'm looking for escapes me, but in modern society, we're induced to consume. I mean, everything is about consumption, especially here in America. We're a consumer society. And so everything is geared towards consumption. So there's those persons who are consuming, and then there's those persons who are inducing persons to consume. So all of that is tamped down by having a spiritual focus that's provided both by the Brahmana and the Kshatriya. And then you have those persons who are the assistants to these other orders of life. They assist with either production, they assist with either ordering society, assisting Kshatriyas, or they also assist Brahmanas in their efforts to disseminate spiritual education. So that's a rough idea of the way those orders of life work. And the ashramas, these are orders of life such that persons understand their responsibilities as they progress in age throughout life. All of these are directed towards spiritual development. In every stage of life, there's an opportunity to be connected spiritually. So for the brahmachari, which is the unmarried student life, the grihastha, the married life, the persons who are retired, and then the renounced life, all of them have an opportunity to be connected spiritually. So that's the ashram system.
Could you mention how the Varnas are supposed to be by qualification and proclivity and not by birth?
Oh, that's an important clarification. And we talk about, we dedicate a good amount of time in the 4 steps to reestablishing Varnashrama to clarifying these misconceptions. These are based on training and qualifications that just as you go to a doctor, you're not concerned with his parentage, etc. You're looking for this qualification. Is this person trained in the field? Just like I was mentioning earlier, I was at a chiropractor's, so I didn't ask. I don't know my chiropractor's family name, etc.
Were you born in a good doctor's family?
Yeah, no. He's a good chiropractor. Mm-hmm. He has his thing on the wall, University of Florida. And he, gets the job done. So nothing.
What Gotra are you from?
No, none of those things. Now, having said all of that, you often see that within a family there is they get exposure to these things, especially in some of the fields. Let's take agriculture, because my father grew up in an agricultural family. So all my uncles, they own land in southern Alabama. You learn that. So the children being around those things can naturally learn those things easily. But there's no guarantee. Someone could go and do something else.
But Daddy, I want to play music.
Okay.
Sweet home Alabama.
We saw a lot of that.
But it's natural, though, that if you're in that atmosphere,
you learn.
And you may have that proclivity, so you have a head start.
One of the things I really enjoy is occasionally I watch these YouTube videos, and one that comes to mind I can remember, she was a young girl. She was about maybe 11, but just a real young, living on the farm, and she had the duty of milking the cows, and she did videos about taking the cow in. You see, she do the whole thing. She knew how to take care of them, how to milk, how to keep up with the milk, and it was just training. Now that person may have some other qualities that come out or can be discovered or whatever, but that's part of just growing up in that atmosphere that she's exposed to that and learns that from a very young age. Mm-hmm. So there's some validity to those following family perhaps tradition. But it's not a stricture that you have to do this because your family does this. And
the family should not monopolize the occupation.
Correct. And also on the other end as well, the because all of them require qualifications for society to continue to work. That's important.
Uh-huh.
So, does that?
Yes, thank you. Thank
So
you.
the reason why I bring this up, it's giving us the importance of why are we even looking at Varnashram? Why bother? Things seem to be going on. You know, there's a university here. People are going to, to the university and getting their degree and going off and working, et cetera. So where does the idea of changing any of that come from? Why, what's the need, someone may ask. So Srila Prabhupada saw a great need for that. And so that's one of the things I feel that needs to be acknowledged. And by, once again, looking at things chronologically, you can understand the importance to Srila Prabhupada, his vision in regards to that. My vision, as I said, I wasn't really doing anything in this regard, but Srila Prabhupada's statements point to the importance of Varnashram. And also, have you seen the video where Srila Prabhupada, it was probably his last instructions about Varnashram. It was in October of 1977. He's in Vrindavan. He stopped taking any food or water, and he's dictating the Bhagavatam, and you see Jayadvaita Swami holding the microphone about just like that to his mouth. And his lips are, you can hear him speak words, but they're coming from deep within because hardly there is any movement from his lips and tongue. You can see that.
When he was in his last days.
Yes.
Here on Earth.
And he speaks about the importance of Varnashram at that time.
And what were those statements that he made?
Well, those statements were, he was describing how dangerous it is the material world where the living entity is involved with the modes of passion and ignorance. And he says, therefore, Varnashrama is so important, that they be brought to the human form of life, to the human standard. Because without Varnashram, Srila Prabhupada made it clear, we're not dealing with humans.
So, very, very, very interesting. So, in other words, he saw that the general state of humanity was that by the influence of these modes of nature, mode of passion, which is characterized by kind of unlimited desire for material benefit and material sensual enjoyment, which, as Krishna says, dushparena alena, burns like fire and never satisfies the soul. We all have had that experience. And ignorance, which conditions one to foolishness, madness, the influence of intoxication, and you could say video games is a good example.
Mick Jagger had that experience.
So, but he saw that people were essentially gliding down to a hellish condition. And in the Vedic understanding, hellish means that after this life, they could, if you cultivate the desires of an animal, of a dog who just wants to lay around and have sex and on the street whenever, then okay, the laws of nature will act in such a way that will fulfill that desire. In your next life, you can be born as an animal. Or
they want to eat too.
Yeah, they want. Yeah. I mean, my dog wants to eat, but a suitable body will be given according to the laws of nature to fulfill one's predominant desires. If one wants to eat and have sex a lot, he can become a pigeon and have sex, 50, 60 times a day.
Or a rabbit.
Yeah. So Prabhupada was concerned that he saw the situation of society, so he wanted to enact this system, and he was feeling the urgent need as he was leaving the physical plane to how do we organize society so that people will be gradually elevated, so that in this life and in their next lives they can actually attain happiness, as Garg said, fulfillment, and ultimately the supreme destination.
It's an interesting thing to note that Srila Prabhupada felt the danger that human society is in. Like I was mentioning it today, I was out, I had to go to a chiropractor appointment, etc. And I'm driving and, I have to make it here at this time and be back. It was a little busy day for me. I move around and I think probably others do it as well, devotees. And I don't feel the danger that these persons are in. I don't feel the danger that I'm in. I'm trying to understand. I have to hear from Srila Prabhupada regularly to understand that. But Srila Prabhupada was feeling the danger of these persons, of living entities, parts and parcels of Krishna, and how they are entrapped. He used these words, entrapped. We think we're free, do whatever. But he was feeling how we are entrapped within this world. And so this, Srila Prabhupada's emphasis on Varnashrama was another extension of his mercy. This is a way wherein these persons, residents of Kali Yuga, can go about meeting their material necessities and that simultaneously make good use of this human form of life. That's what drove Srila Prabhupada's vision in regards to this. This is another extension of mercy, along with the spreading of Krishna consciousness, the holy name.
That's a very good point. And one thing that comes to mind for me is that we are living in an artificial society, and it seems like it's going to bust. And so, like the implementation of Varnashram seems very urgent to me. We don't live in an agrarian society. We're over dependent on the mercy of others. Everything is made in mass production, and there's so many unnatural ways that all these things are done. And so, do you think that we can do this without like a big boom happening, or like a big catastrophe? Or do you think that we just need to get ready in case it happens?
Well, there are a number of things I'll give some opinion in regards to this. Srila Prabhupada saw clearly that these things cannot go on. It's just like if you're cooking, if you do any cooking and you have let's use a pressure cooker. If you lock it down and put the top on and lock the top down and turn the heat on, what's going to happen?
You have a very good example of that, right?
Just give you an example of that, which is kind of happening in modern society now. We can see, as I say, like the implosion or the external manifestation, explosion. I was with a friend of mine, and we took a trip. It was kind of like a Sankirtan trip. We were doing some sales of Prabhupada's books, and he was cooking. I think he was cooking khichdi in a pressure cooker.
Okay.
And
I can see where this is going.
And it was an Airbnb, and it was a really nice house,
okay,
in a nice neighborhood. Beautiful kitchen. We actually got a good deal on it, but it was a really nice place. All of a sudden, I'm sitting in my bedroom, and I think I was reading, and I was like, boom! Excuse my overloading there. And I was like, oh my God! It's like it sounded like a shotgun. I come into the kitchen. The pot had exploded, and it literally the pot was in about 100 pieces, lodged into the ceiling. Stainless steel pot. Parts of it lodged into the ceiling, lodged into the wall. The owners of the house had to pay about close to $40,000 to get the house fixed. And he was responsible. I think they asked him to pay like $14,000. So, but it was like this, like you say, the pressure cooker exploded. It caused mass chaos. So that's a great example, and I have acute experience of that. If any of us would have been in the kitchen at the time, we could have been killed because it was like that shrapnel.
Or blinded or something.
Yeah, something. It was. So that's happening in society as we speak.
So human society right now, this has never been done where you have mechanized 24 hours a day slaughter of animals. There have been meat eaters. We know that. We know that from the Vedic literatures. And within Varnashram, there are accommodations even for meat eaters. But nothing like this 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's unbelievable that that's happening. And we do that not only with human species, with animal species, we're basically doing the same with humans as well. So all of this is the karmic
In terms of abortion.
and I don't even want to speak verbally, just to where things have gone. Those things we know about.
And human sex trafficking and harvesting of organs, somebody thinks.
24/7 Slurpees as well.
24 what?
Slurpees. You can get a Slurpee at any time, day or night.
Okay.
But no. All right. What I'm saying is everything.
See the connection.
It's everything constantly at all times is going on.
Yeah.
It's just intense. That's what I'm saying.
So the question becomes, how could it not explode,
Right.
etc.
So the solution.
Yeah. So we have this unprecedented feature. These features in Kali Yuga, and what to speak of the stockpiles of nuclear weapons and things like this. I don't know of any effective weapon in the history of human society that never has been used. We just make them for show or something like that, put on the wall or something. No, eventually, Srila Prabhupada explained, these things will be used. And on the other side, on the positive side, we're talking about the human beings becoming civilized. So for the spreading of Krishna consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada states here, he's very emphatic about this point. And this is, in fact, there's more. Because I only included part of it. I think I can. In order for us to move forward, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the Hare Krishna movement, there need be an analysis of where we are and where we're going. And that necessitates being somewhat critical. So I just wanted to preface that. I appreciate the efforts that persons are making, but in order to accurately look at these things, certain things need to be called out. Mm-hmm. What we are doing is trying, as what Srila Prabhupada states here, in big scale, you cannot make all of them as brahmanas or sannyasi. No, that is not possible. This is small scale. We're trying to become better at the small scale. I've looked at some of the plans that are stated for for 2035, I think is the target year, what they hope to accomplish by that.
Who's they?
There's a planning board, and they're expressing some vision. It's like in North America.
You're talking about in the context of the Krishna Consciousness
Movement.
Society.
Yes, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which really has this mandate to do this. But we're trying to become more expert at what Srila Prabhupada already described as the small scale. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, not giving adequate attention to the large scale, and that's going to be to our detriment. Srila Prabhupada on the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's, in December's appearance or disappearance?
I'm not sure.
Okay. One of the two, appearance or disappearance. He said this Hare Krishna movement deteriorated. He's speaking about the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after his departure. He makes the statement, the 6 Goswamis, they managed.
Bhaktisiddhanta or Srila Prabhupada?
No, Srila Prabhupada is making
Okay.
this statement about after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Okay.
He's describing it, but he gives this lecture on his spiritual master's appearance or disappearance day. Srila
Okay.
Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance or disappearance. And that I don't remember which is. But he says that this Hare Krishna movement also deteriorated. And he goes on to describe what was the cause of that deterioration.
This is pre-ISKCON.
Pre-ISKCON, yes.
Right. Just so people know out there.
Yes,
Okay.
this is pre-ISKCON. From the height of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, wherein my seeing you or you seeing me, you see Lord Chaitanya, I see you, I become infected with love of God. It was faster than COVID or anything that we've experienced in terms of love of God spreading.
Could you say around what year that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared and disappeared?
Yeah, it's about 500 years ago.
Okay.
So we're as Srila Prabhupada would say, within the memory of everyone. So it was recent history. This is recorded in terms of that spreading of love of God. And then within a few generations, it becomes something ridiculous, Srila Prabhupada. This is his statements. And he stated because of Sahajya.
Right.
He said it became something known as sex religion. Very deplorable.
Could you explain what Sahajya means?
Taking everything very cheaply is how Srila Prabhupada explained it. They took it that this sex relationship or sex attraction between male and female was somehow some religion. They mixed all of this together into some very intoxicating something or another. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned they're still going on today. I actually, when I read that, heard that, I did a search on Google, and there's a Sahajya Foundation, and they have their events, and they're going on. But it's a tendency, and the cure, where is in an instance where Srila Prabhupada described this, is Varnashram. He said the cure. I could find it for you, but it's all here in these statements from Srila Prabhupada. In this book, he talks about that. So the point I was making is that there is some critique that I'm making in regards to the Society of Devotees, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, continuing to make effort only on the small scale. So in that grand scheme that was being presented, and it is something in motion, there's no mention about Varnashram.
In the grand scheme.
In terms of their plans for the next decade.
Oh, this ISKCON body that's
Yes, in North America.
Yeah, in other words, that's disconcerting. That's a little bit. How can we talk about the future? It's just like, there's this great awakening movement in society of people really searching for what is the truth behind the different machinations of the prevailing narratives and the people that are running the central banks and things like COVID and things like replacement migration. Is there an agenda? Yes, we're seeing it as agenda, and they're trying to ultimately bring so many truths to the public who's been almost hypnotized by prevailing narratives. But the question among many people is, if we're coming into a new vision for the world, what is that best vision? And Prabhupada and Lord Krishna, God, in Bhagavad Gita are saying that vision is ordering society according to people's natural proclivities and natural spiritual inclinations, so they can be loved and accepted for who they are and their station of life, and encouraged to just take some small steps towards spiritual life and towards God. And if the leaders of society, in this case the Brahmins, the spiritual wise men and women, and Prabhupada was saying that that's what he wanted his society to be, teachers of society. If their vision is not how to organize society so then, as Prabhupada said, everyone can become happy, then we're not fulfilling our true mission and what Prabhupada's mission was.
So one of the challenges is to demonstrate it, because most persons are going to understand it not by something you speak. They'll need to see, this is how this works.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yes, some demonstration of that. So the book that I'm working on, 4 Simple Steps to Reestablish Varnashram, is in one sense very simple. I could write them on the back of a business card. 1, Srila Prabhupada emphasized Varna first. In traditional Vedic society, the society of ancient India, Varna was the first consideration in terms of what you're going to offer to society. Oh, I know the point I was mentioning. In regards to what you described, it is even more than that. Varnashrama is the system that connects us universally and trans-universally. I'll try to explain. Nature.
I love that term, trans-universally.
Varnashram connects us with
the real trans movement.
Yes, it connects you with the proper alignment with nature. In the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada illuminates this repeatedly. the connection between proper social organization within human society and Mother Nature providing the necessities. That has to be there. Otherwise, Mother Nature will not provide the necessities, regardless of the human effort to do so. And that was the situation when King Vena was removed, and all of. So this is a situation that we are divorced from. We don't have experience of it, and that's something that's offered through Varnashram. Take it a step higher. Even on the higher planets, Varnashrama is the system of organization. Varnashrama exists on higher planets. Srila Prabhupada talks about it in the 5th canto. Go even higher. When Krishna comes to this world, he displays his pastimes in Vrindavan. This is a sample, this is an introduction to the spiritual world. He has his Brahmana friend, Madhu Mangal. Brahmana, does that ring a bell? That's part of the Varnashram system. He participates in a Vaishya community as a cowherd boy, part of Varnashrama. Varnashrama also exists in the spiritual world. We in modern society with these isms, socialism, capitalism, democracy, all of these are man-made systems of deviation, I just call it, from human society, from human life. The Varnashram system connects us with nature, the natural gifts of nature, and the cooperation of the devatas, and also the, here's a way I can explain. This is all from Bhagavad Gita. Now, we know from the Urdhvam Kachanti Sattvasta, Majje Tishtanti Rajasa, Jagunaguna Vrittista, Dojaganti Tamasa. Mode of goodness takes you up. Mode of passion keeps you within the same situation. Mode of ignorance takes you down. Very simple. Earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states that for the Kshatriya, happy are these battle opportunities that come unsought, opening the doors to liberation. Kshatriyas are in what mode?
Passion.
Passion, pure passion. So how is the mode of passion, which is in Raja Jagunaguna Vritti, no, Majje Tishtanti, Rajasa, how is it now taking you up?
Because that's their duty.
Yes, it's connected with Krishna. This is the point. Krishna, out of all the things that you can do as a human being, these are the small subset of activities that Krishna states, I will accept. It's just like saying, well, you know, you probably heard this before. Well, why didn't Krishna accept my McDonald's hamburger if I offer it to him? No, he says, I like this. And so we offer, as Srila Prabhupada explains, we're not, in one sense, vegetarians, we're Krishnatarians.
Yes.
What Krishna...
Patram pushram phalam tayam, yome bhakta prayachati.
Yes, we know that. And we even know what he, the things that he likes, even down to the, rasagulas, and, we have a menu.
Yes, all kind of pure, natural, vegetarian type of items.
Krishna accepts them.
A leaf, a flower, a fruit, like that, I will accept.
And and therefore we offer him those. Varnashrama means out of all the things that human beings can do, these are things that Krishna will accept. He states that these will I accept, and by doing them, because that statement, think about that, it's presented in the 2nd chapter of second, or it's either at the beginning of the 2nd chapter or the 1st chapter. Krishna hasn't talked anything about spiritual understanding at all. I think it's 1st chapter. He says, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such battle opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors to liberation. Krishna's just talking ordinary, I guess you'd say, ordinary social dynamics.
Right.
That as a Kshatriya, you do your duty in this battle, and you're going to either win the kingdom or you're going to go to heaven. So how is that for someone pure in the mode of passion? It's because this subset is not an ordinary activity. This is something connected with Krishna.
Right. So in other words, there's these small steps that each person can take according to their varna, their natural tendencies towards work, their natural proclivities, correct? And small steps that one can take. One doesn't have to go to the Himalayas or become a monk. like that, or a nun, whatever. One can just take these small steps, but do
Or live in an ashram.
or take these small steps in relation to some type of connection to God.
Yes.
And Krishna says that everyone follows their own nature, and what good will repression accomplish? And and there's also maybe you could talk about this, the difference, the distinction between Varnashram and Daivi Varnashram.
Okay. I have a pet peeve with Daivi.
Okay.
Varnashram. I think it's from South India. I don't think I've made this up, but you can correct me if you know better. If you can't make rice, don't try to make doshas. You know the masala dosha?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. If you can't make rice, then don't try that.
I'm really hungry right now, so let's not talk about it.
So my point is that oftentimes devotees confuse themselves, this is my experience, when they bring up Daivi Varnashrama. Get Varnashrama down, and then we'll talk about the Daivi.
Okay.
But what is a Daivi?
In one sense, all Daivi's meaning, it was a term introduced by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to distinguish it from the corrupted Varnashrama in that system.
Or the caste system?
Yeah, the caste system.
I see, okay.
So Varnashrama is already divine. Just like, in the Bhagavad Gita,
It's a good distinction.
Maya is described Daivi Maya, right? But we don't say, Prabhu, you're in Daivi Maya. I mean, people will get confused, right?
Get out of Daivi Maya.
Prabhu, get out of Daivi Maya. What do you do? Like, yeah.
Or don't dive into Maya. So back to the 4 points. So,
Go ahead.
So you were
Varna first.
Varna first. So the natural. What is my natural proclivity? What types of traits am I what types of inclinations am I displaying?
Right. Now, let me clarify for us in Kali Yuga.
Okay.
We're mixed. Everyone knows that. We, all sorts of things. Srila Prabhupada emphasized training. What are you willing to be trained as and do for Krishna? Mm-hmm. And even at an advanced age, I have to look at, in order to make this work, which one am I willing to be trained in and stick to that? Because this is the other part of it. The Varnas, persons who, once you decide, you stick to something. Because all of them will have their difficulties. That's why it's explained. It's better to perish doing your own duty than others. So you choose something and then stick to it. Get trained in that. So myself, I mentioned this on the offering just recently in Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. I'm endeavoring to train myself and be trained by others in Kshatriya Dharma. What does that mean to become a Kshatriya in the modern age? So you choose something, but the emphasis in Kali Yuga for Varna first is in training. What will you be willing to be
So
trained?
in other words, just to break that down in a simple way for myself and our listeners to understand, Varna means the qualities of work which we exhibit, our natural inclinations. One, either through one's own intuitive self-observation and through the guidance of people one respects as mentors. What we can determine, a person can determine through that advice in one's own intuitive sense, what is my natural inclination towards work? And then get proper training in that work, and that training also how to do it in such a way where there's, in some way, it's pleasing to God.
Yeah.
Like that.
Could you explain how training is connected to ashram as well?
Well, ashram comes later. And this is something that also Srila Prabhupada brilliantly, and this is one of the things that's pointed out in the book speaking about the 4 simple steps to reestablish Varnashram. Let me read it.
Okay.
This was Hridayananda. So interesting, initially they were talking about the Varnashram College. If we go further, we'll see how Srila Prabhupada expands his vision to become universal. So let me just read something.
Go for it.
Hridayananda. So in this Varnashrama college, there would be 2 divisions, Varna and Ashrama, learning a material. Prabhupada. First of all, Varna and Ashrama, then, when the Varna is perfectly in order, then Ashrama.
So, and after one is established in their natural inclination, getting trained in that way, then they can kind of integrate their spiritual inclinations through that. That's my understanding.
Well, my understanding is more is you set up society and you start with Varna first, and then ashram comes after.
Both of you are correct.
Okay.
Both of you are
Amen.
correct. In my opinion, both of you are correct.
Okay.
But think about that in terms of the experience, both within ISKCON and today. I've never seen the attempt at Varna first.
Right. It's always kind of the ashram mode is put first.
Didn't they do it a little bit in New Vrindavan for a while?
Not to my experience, and certainly not. I try to monitor and keep aware of what's going on, but perhaps with Vaishya in terms of taking care of the cows, but more than that, no. Otherwise, that's okay. It's an interesting thought, and it could take us off on a little road. We could
Okay,
come
go
back,
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
but it is interesting though. What happened in New Vrindavan? And I don't know all the details, but there is something that I can mention from personal experience, because I did have periodic contact. I say contact, that may sound like a weird word but interactions with Kirtanananda Swami when he was a Swami. He was a Yoda-like figure.
He was.
Wearing a faded t-shirt, this cloth just wrapped around him with a stretched out hoodie and some slip-on shoes. And he was rarely away from New Vrindavan, which was not an easy place to live. And that's what I saw each time I saw him.
He was also a lot of other things as well.
Eventually we saw that. But here's my question. There's two things there. One, New Vrindavan would not be there without him performing those early austerities to make the place stay. I mean, they said you could see the snow through the building, like you wonder how much snow there fell the night before. Just look through the crack and you could see it. And so, but when persons are not in their proper position, then it eats at their integrity. Brahmanas do not lead communities such as New Vrindavan.
Right. It's so interesting you're saying this, because this is part of Prabhupada saying this must be instituted so people will become happy or fulfilled. If one is not acting according to their nature and improperly engaged, they're going to feel this inner disconnectedness, right?
They may not feel it, and you may not see it, but it's just like
But it'll eventually manifest.
It's just like the salt that eats underneath a car in the
Right.
north from the salt, and then all of a sudden you're steering the wheel and it doesn't respond, and you take it in, and it's like there's nothing there, sir. I don't even know how you made it here.
Right.
So these improper dealings. The Kshatriya is the person who can deal with wealth, families, etc. You're going to hear about these things. That's just part of what goes on. And all the things that come along with being in that position. That is not Brahminical. That's not Brahminical water. And someone a Brahmana in that situation is exposing himself to things that they're not meant to be exposed to.
So it's interesting because we had on Prahladanandan Swami about a week and a half or so ago, and he was talking about the very crucial mistake that the leadership of our society made in the aftermath of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, that people misunderstood when they took the position of guru, that the guru was became the ultimate in everything, managing, spiritual guidance, and as he said, Prabhupada, they mixed up their role. They weren't
Marriage
clear.
advice.
Yeah, they were like, they were gurus, and they shouldn't have been dealing with management, really. They should have just been dealing with the spiritual culture of their disciples, of those that they were training. And because they weren't things, they mixed everything up, and they became infected with the, say, money, with power, with women, etc., because they didn't properly understand their role.
These are the things that Varnashram makes very clear.
Right.
And but the challenge is, in one sense, we asked them to do that in our immaturity because we hadn't gotten to this point. So this is a good segue back to this.
Right, back to, so you've gotten to point number one.
Varna 1,
Yeah.
Varna first. then look at Varna very carefully and at least get a basic, complete understanding. Like we touched on earlier, it is not the caste system. It's not something born from, so that's dealt with. And there may be other misconceptions. Very basic. You don't need a lot. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. This book, The 4 Simple Steps to Reestablish Varnashrama, it will be less than 100 pages. So it doesn't require like a big, it's an afternoon's reading, really.
When's it coming out, by the way?
My prayers by the end of the year, that it should be in your hands.
Looking forward to it, but go ahead.
Yes. So just a basic understanding of Varna. And then analyze Varna, because now we are looking at, after you get that complete understanding of the different Varnas that are involved, who is meant to take on the task of reestablishing Varnashram? So it's very simple. We have now the Varnas, we have a basic understanding. Sudras, they're the persons who are assisting others. They're not leadership. They're essential, but they're not leadership. All of the Varnas are essential, because sometimes people have difficulty picking one out and saying, but what about them? They're also essential. Yes, everybody is essential. You need, for a functioning body, you need, your heads, your arms. Everyone appreciates. Yay arms, yay legs, yay head. But they are not the persons that are going to reestablish Varnashrama.
Those are the leaders, so the Kshatriyas.
The Kshatriyas. When you analyze it, the Brahmanas are not, they may understand, they are an important part, but that type of lifting is not their domain. The Brahmanas characterize, it has certain strictures, not over-endeavoring. For the Kshatriya, exertion is a principle. Almost the opposite. Exertion. Now, which one suits reestablishing Varnashram? Do you think exertion or not over-endeavoring?
Exertion.
It's going to be a big exertion.
I mean, just to take an example, Donald Trump, whether one likes him or not, 79 years old, the guy works like,
a maniac.
Like crazy, like nobody, what he's doing, his schedule is just constantly traveling, meeting with world leaders, putting together 8 peace deals in 8 months, sleeping very little. I mean, that's the exertion that's required to bring about some type of shift.
It's necessary. Dealing with money. How much money do you think it's going to require? It requires these things. It's not a small endeavor that it's not like just, some hippies running into the woods and, throwing up some tents and calling it Varnashram. These things are required. Srila Prabhupada gave us a criteria: land, capital, organization, and labor. So who can corral or bring these things about, harness them? It's not the Brahmana, it's the Kshatriya.
Right. And
when you analyze it, the Vaishyas, they take advantage of infrastructure. Historical example, when the Pandavas were given Khandava Prastha, a desert basically. And of course, by their liaison, their relationship with Krishna, wonderful things were constructed. And then it describes how the other Varnas then came and took advantage. Brahmanas came and set up their teaching opportunities, and Vaishyas came to sell their wares, etc. And obviously there's going to be persons who are assisting all these persons. But it was the Kshatriyas that established that, and it became prosperous. Arjuna, another name, Dhananjaya, conqueror of wealth. In fact, going back all the way back to the beginning, this is how I came to all of this. And I never did finish that story. But I was wondering, where do the Kshatriyas get their wealth? I mean, how do, I can see how it's passed down in the kingdoms, etc. But how do you jumpstart this? So what does everyone do when you don't know something? I went to Google and I did a Google search. And what happened was a PDF came up. It was a grainy one too, and it had something about Arjuna talking about wealth. He was speaking to Yudhishthira after the battle of Kurukshetra, and he was talking about wealth. And it was said Shanti Parva of Mahabharata. I said, oh, so that's where I can find some information about this. Because over a period of time, I was still curious about how Kshatriyas got their wealth. From that initial class that the sannyasi gave, it was Guru Prasad Swami, where he had talked about traditional society and who the economic engine was. So eventually I got the book, which is about this thick, a Ganguly translation, and I started to read it, and oh my gosh, there's just so much there about the Kshatriyas, because the circumstances after the Battle of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira didn't want to take up the throne. He was depressed. All the people were killed. His sons were killed. I mean, think about that. Oh, these are all the persons you know, if you win, you know, these are the persons that you would want to be cheering you. There was nobody. They're all dead. So it's a very hollow victory, if you could call it that. Still, Krishna was there, Vyasadeva, Narada, so many sages, etc., and they were all congratulating Yudhishthira and encouraged him. Say, oh, now you've won this great battle. You know, certainly you're happy. I think they could tell what was the situation because they were all their statements were very trying to cheer Yudhishthira up, and he wasn't having it. And so Krishna empowered Bhishma Dev to speak to Maharaj Yudhishthira. And that's so much information there. This is really where I started in terms of re-entry into Varnashram. Looking through the lens of Kshatriya Dharma, I could see this is what's missing within ISKCON. We don't have anything in this regard. So the Varnashram obviously includes all 4 Varnas. There's no Kshatriya there. There was nothing.
So how does a Kshatriya win the wealth? Because some people would criticize or argue it's nothing more than a glorified conqueror and plunderer.
That would be accurate in some regards. Next question. And that doesn't sit well with most persons.
Right.
Because they haven't studied Kshatriya Dharma. It's not an easy task. So because your point is actually right. Consider how Arjuna got that name. Describe it. How did Arjuna get that name?
Because he would either go and exact taxes from different kingdoms, or if they didn't want to cooperate, he would do it by force.
Right. The rule of law.
Now, it's interesting. I was reading just yesterday where Srila Prabhupada commented that in the pastimes of Bali Maharaj, where Vaninath took his, I won't try to explain all of that to the audience, but Srila Prabhupada mentions that Vaninath didn't just take it because Bali Maharaj had conquered all this rightfully. That was Srila Prabhupada's words. Rightfully, he had conquered all of the universe rightfully by strength.
Right. He had conquered the demigods.
Yeah, so he didn't want to, he said that was rightfully done. I'm not going to violate that.
So why can't everyone just live in harmony and not conquer each other? Why did we come here and take everything from the Native Americans, and, et cetera? Someone may say that. And, one argument against it is that if the righteous people don't do it, then the demoniac people will. And it will.
Very well said. Very well said. And also the other thing is that these endeavors are not done with common people. It's not that you go and you're mowing people, the ordinary citizens. The ordinary citizens everywhere, they just want to get on with their lives. They just, they're trying to feed their children.
There was a Kshatriya code.
Yeah, there's so much there. And Schiller, it's very interesting. This once again, going back to this book, I want to just continue to emphasize it. Because one of the most trained elements of modern society you would think that would fit within Varnashrama would be military. Because they get extensive training, etc. There's codes, all of that. Srila Prabhupada, in talking about, someone brought that up to him in discussing it. And Srila Prabhupada said it 3 times. They are not Kshatriyas. They are not Kshatriyas. They are not Kshatriyas.
Who are not Kshatriyas?
Modern military.
Okay.
He because this was brought up. So,
and what was his, because they don't have that spiritual guidance?
they are not trained. They are not trained in these things. Mm-hmm. Now, someone would say, well, how are you going to do that? Because, I don't know if you're aware of this, I have launched the International School of Kshatriya Training. This is it's based on the certifications that we'll be starting with this book, speaking about Varnashram, and it will go on to look at Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, where Srila Prabhupada comments extensively. And then we'll go into the Mahabharata, particularly Bhishma Dev's teachings to Maharaj Yudhishthira.
So you're wanting to get this training because you realize that to implement this system, the implementers are the martial class, the Kshatriya class,
the Kshatriyas.
The administrator, leader.
Dealing with the wealth, dealing with the land.
Right.
The Kshatriyas own the land.
Right.
They do all these things.
So step one is
Varna first.
Varna first. Step
Second is just a clear understanding of what we're talking about when we talk about Varna.
Okay.
Third one, analyze it for what we need. So once again, I apply in there that simple statement from Srila Prabhupada: land, capital, organization, and labor. Mm-hmm. Who can marshal those in sufficient quantity?
Land, capital, organization, and labor.
Okay, so at the beginning...
Then we'll get to number 4, but go ahead.
I'm sorry. We get these things, and then Kshatriya means to protect from hurt. So at the beginning, we're defending them.
Yeah, so you say we get them. What do you mean we? Who are
We means the Kshatriya, but the whole Varnashram system. When we established the Varnashram, the Varna,
Okay.
right? It's not like we're going to go out and like plunder a bunch of wealth.
So
Right.
so here it's a very important point. Very important point. Given in the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that states that Prithu Maharaj enacted activities based on his personal capacity and his financial capability. I mean, that's almost verbatim. It may be a couple of words that are different. Everything depends on the Kshatriya's ability. Now, you can't dictate to a Kshatriya, unless you're another Kshatriya, that you can do this and you can't do that. A Kshatriya, with his training, will do the needful. Now, the world is such a diverse circumstance that it's difficult to say. You can't come up with a plan that you do X, Y, and Z. A Kshatriya will have to assess those things, the circumstances that he finds himself in and that he's trying to address, and he'll have to have an intense knowledge of his capability and his advisors, and then figure out what to do. And that's not something you can just write a formula for. You follow? Because
Yeah.
Consider how different even the United States is. The Northeast, industrial place compared to the Midwest, or when you compare countries. China is very different from Brazil in certain regards, and both geography.
A lot of regards.
Yeah, and geography and local mentality and all sorts of things.
Uh-huh.
But this is the point. So instead of trying to come up with, and this is something that we've been grappling with, we've been trying to come up with how to do Varnashram. We haven't formed the persons to do Varnashram. That is the Kshatriyas. So the final step is train Kshatriyas. Srila Prabhupada asked us to do that. I don't have a quote here, but I'm sure there's, let me see, by Krishna's mercy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let's see if I can put my hand right on one, because this happens oftentimes.
Let the magic begin.
Mm-hmm. But Srila Prabhupada asked repeatedly, said, if you create Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, you will be saved, the world will be saved, and and Krishna will be pleased.
Well, how much of it is preparation, as opposed, because you're saying we have to have the right people, so they will know how to act when the time comes. Is that what you're basically saying?
I'm saying train them.
Okay, but you have to have the right people in order to. You get the right people, they're trained. Who's going to train them?
There's a lot to be done. You have
Yeah.
to start from where, just like Srila Prabhupada did. We have the example, and this is on my website. He says that
What is your website?
speaking about Varnashrama.com.
Okay.
He says that you're brahmanas by training. Just as I have come and I have trained you, similarly you train others in this regard. He always brought it back to something that we can do. ISKCON has good results with training.
So, if we can just go over the 4 steps really quickly, and then I want to ask you a really existential question.
Okay, Varna first.
Varna first.
Clarity about Varna. Analyze Varna using that criteria: land, capital, organization, labor. Train Kshatriyas, because Kshatriyas are the only ones that really are in position to do any of that heavy lifting.
So
train Kshatriyas. Those are the 4 steps.
So the question always comes up in these discussions on Varnashram, because some have the understanding that Varnashram means establishing self-sufficient farm communities, because Srila Prabhupada often talked about Varnashram in relation to, you could say, going back to the land, learning how to grow your own food, not being dependent on the amenities of modern society, which are often artificial. You know,
It's very simple.
If the oil stops, you know, you have a cow, oxen, horse, and buggy. The Amish are a very good example of that. So the kind of existential question is, and so that's one understanding of Varnashram, that it means going back to the land. And then another understanding is, which seems to be more what you're saying, is that organizing society based on their qualities of work and then giving a simple impetus towards spiritual culture. So to me, it seems like a combination of both.
So here's the farms are important, as Srila Prabhupada said. There we can demonstrate the full Varnashram culture.
Right.
In the city, it's possible, but the price tag goes way, 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 way up, because you do need some domain where you call the shots. That is the position of the Kshatriya. He has to have, ultimately, the decisions come to him, and he makes a decision, and he lives by those. He lives and dies by those. He has to be that person. So in the city, obviously, land is much more expensive. Just like today, I routinely look at land it's just something that I do. And so I was looking at some place, 180 acres. It was in the middle of nowhere. It was like $2,000 or something like that. It's probably, whatever, probably no water there. Just
$2,000 per acre?
No,
or for the whole thing?
For the whole thing.
For 180 acres?
Yeah.
Where do I sign up?
But my point is that what would 180 acres cost you in Alachua County?
Yeah. Serious amount of money.
Serious amount of money. There are persons who have that kind of money, but see, that's another thing, but I won't get off on that. But the reasons that farms were emphasized, because the possibility of, one, control. You can do the things that you want to do. You can have enough people there. This is one of the challenges at the farm in Alachua. We can't choose how many people live there. That's up to the county. And we have to jump through multiple hoops and loops to get the opportunity. The plan that on paper cost, I think, was $40,000, and that has to be, and until you execute it, it has to be updated periodically, and at a certain point it becomes stale, and you have to go through the whole process again.
You're a real estate guy also.
I did some things in real estate, yeah. So it's expensive to do that. So that's a practical consideration, and also one of the central parts of human life is cow protection. Civilized human life is cow protection. Hard to do in the city. So it's more a practical consideration, but we've taken it kind of, when we say the Varnashram, we're talking about, farms. Dwarka was a Varnashram capital.
A city capital.
A city capital. And it had a wide variety of people. And that's illustrated by the speaker at that time, who I think is Sukadeva Goswami, when he's describing Krishna's entrance into Dwarka. And you know how he emphasizes it? He emphasizes talking about the prostitutes. He says that there are many hundreds of prostitutes. And he describes them. It's very interesting if you read that chapter. No one gets any description. It mentions the bards that came out, these people came out, nobody, everyone's just a name. These persons came out, until he gets to the prostitutes. Then he gives them adjectives and adverbs. Many, hundreds. So many is one thing, hundreds. Prostitutes, it describes their face, their earrings, and they were very eager to see the Lord. All in one verse. They get their own verse, and they get all these descriptions. And you think, well, why was a renunciate talking about prostitutes like that? And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes it clear that he's talking about not like one devotee was mentioned, that, thought that he was talking about Devi Dasis or something like this. No, Prabhupada's talking about the basic prostitute, the real deal. Because he talks about them in all the major cities of the world. And I don't think we have Devi Dasis, in all the major cities of the world. But, so the question comes up, why would he do that? What was the purpose? It was helping us understand the diversity that existed. And it relates, in my opinion, back to a previous verse where it also describes the other Kshatriyas who were there in Dwarka. It described the Vrishnis, the Yadus, etc. And they're all described as being as strong as Lord Krishna. Not as pure, not as spiritual, not as beautiful, as strong as Lord Krishna. So in my mind, there's a correlation between the diversity that you can have in society and the strength of the leadership. When you have brahmanas leading, you're going to tend toward monoculture. Everyone has to rise early in the mornings, 16 rounds, 4 regulated principles. When you have Kshatriya leadership, so brahmanas establish ashrams. Kshatriyas establish Varnashram. Does that make sense? Do you follow?
But the brahmanas still advise the Kshatriyas.
Yes,
right?
but not any brahmana can advise a Kshatriya. Because just like this is something, when I first encountered this information, I'll be perfectly honest, I tried to get somebody else to do it. I said, this is amazing, but I don't know what to do. So Prabhu, can don't you look at this? And people would look at me and say, oh, devotees were very polite, because I must have sounded like a crazy person, bringing these things up. They would always listen, nod their head and say, well, have you talked with such and such? No, okay, I'll see you later. You go talk with him. And that was the standard reply that I got. And I started to notice that, that they were just kind of like, okay, he's gone off on a tangent or something like that. Because it was something that persons hadn't really thought of about in that depth.
You've gone into the Vanashram rabbit hole.
Yes, I've gone down the rabbit hole, never to be seen again.
I have a quick question. We have to wrap up soon.
Okay. Sorry, we've been all over the place.
No. I mean, we could go on for
but we
hours
did
and hours.
we did finish the 4 steps, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
So how can we prepare if society does go boom and people start going feral?
And there's a calculation also that how many meals they have to miss before they start. I mean, it's not that many. I think it's like within 3 days or so, like this. People will start to, the animal will come out. You have to choose a varna and be trained. You just choose a varna. This is one of the things that's also there in speaking of the 4 simple steps to reestablish Varnashrama. Choose a varna and begin training on it. But I also have to say, until Kshatriyas act, we don't have much to stand on.
It'd be like the Wild Wild West.
The devotees will be in this pretty much the same circumstance as most other persons. Yeah, until the Kshatriyas get their act together. So everything centers around there. And this is, even in Bhishma Dev's instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira, he emphasizes this. I can almost quote a verse verbatim in that regard. He states that just as an elephant's footprint encompasses all the footprints of smaller animals, similarly, the Kshatriya's duties engulf, that was the word, engulf all the duties of all the Varnas in every circumstance. So until the Kshatriya does their duty, and they're established, it's very difficult for any other Varna to do theirs.
In other words, without a proper, strong leader that really has imbibed these principles, that the whole system will never be successful.
That is our experience.
Right. So I understand why you've started this Kshatriya school, why you're so intent on this, and I commend you for that. That's brilliant. And I wish you massive success with that.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
And
we need righteous testosterone.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
To protect society.
Exactly. Yeah, because without that, there will be no unless people have sufficient, the leaders have that testosterone, in body, mind, and spirit, also in spirit, not just in body, then, the passion for the mission, besides just the physical testosterone, then they will not be able to properly lead, guide, rule, and rule with the rule of law, with justice also.
Yeah.
Another point that I'd like to make is bringing it back to the spiritual culture, because the goal of Varnashram is to lead people gradually, according to their capacity, to take up the devotional service of God, to in some way mold their activities in a way that God is pleased at the end of the day, even if they can do just a little bit, like offering some of the fruits of their activities, some of the money towards a spiritual cause, offering, chanting of prayers in the morning, offering their food to God, in some way acting for the betterment of society, helping their fellow man, but also doing it in a mood of service to the Supreme. And just like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer or give away, as well as any austerities you perform, should be done as an offering unto me. And this way, people will become elevated on the spiritual path. So maybe you could also speak to, although the grand scheme is farms, self-sufficient communities, how can people in the city, how can somebody that's listening to this broadcast go, okay, all that sounds well and good, it's kind of very theoretical, I get it for the long run, but where do I fit in, what can I do?
Well, in the meantime, the things that we've been presenting the Krishna consciousness movement are still relevant. I mean, persons can chant. I mean, this is a simple process given for this age, and it is simple and is doable. All you need is a tongue and an ear, which most persons are equipped with. Even in Kali Yuga, you get basic equipment. Utilize those things. And as you mentioned, offering your food, all these things help both with the atmosphere of human society and then for the individual. So anything that persons do. And prayers are a simple thing that one can do while driving your car instead of listening to whatever, say something else. These things assist the atmosphere, and it's not without effect. So there are numerous ways that we're currently the Krishna consciousness movement presents, and also other traditions as well. Yeah. I've had such an interesting experience. I live next door to a very nice Jehovah's Witness family, and we often talk, and I've got to know them some in terms of just the things that they also attempt to do within community and things like that. So all those things help, just in terms of the fabric of society as well. So Krishna, even in Bhagavad Gita, states that if you can't think of me always, then practice the principles of Bhakti Yoga, and this way gradually develop your love for me. And if you can't do this, then he gives you a prescription, all the way down to just trying to be a good person.
Right, yeah. Work for me. Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, meditate. Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, cultivate knowledge. Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, Krishna says, then give up some of the results of your activities to a worthy cause. So there's so many different aspects that one can make spiritual advancement, even in the simplest way.
Just requires consciousness.
Right. So in other words, getting off the me, I, me, mine, selfish platform and do something that's for the benefit of others and ultimately for the benefit of God. Mm-hmm. And in this way, it purifies the atmosphere of society. And then the Varnashram system is an overlaying system so people can be organized in such a way they're acting according to their proclivity and being trained in that way with the proper leader. So all of society is working conjointly. There's the guides, the Brahmins, there's the leaders, there's the mercantile agricultural people, and then there's the people that are doing basic goods and basic services. But they're all working together for the betterment of society and ultimately the satisfaction of God.
And we should be hopeful also. Srila Prabhupada said that there are demigods waiting to take birth within this movement. Now, most of the demigods, especially the principal ones, are Kshatriyas.
Right.
You guys are two powerful souls, that's all I have to say.
They're Kshatriyas. So if we make proper arrangement...
That's because I'm not me personally, but when I'm plugged into this guy, I'm just kind of getting some energy, so.
But think about that. But and Srila Prabhupada, I don't think, was just saying something to encourage us. I mean, he did say things that were encouraging, and it is encouraging, but factual. So what can that mean for the Krishna consciousness? What can that mean for the world when we create the systems of training for them and also cultivate attracting them?
Right.
That's what happened with the Pandavas. They were attracted. Pandava was concerned. So he had this opportunity. There was an arrangement. It was, they were concerned, and they knew that this needed to be done. So this is the stage that we're at right now. We were concerned, and we know this needs to be done. And such a great thing came, the Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas.
Don't you have a newsletter and like regular Zoom meetings?
And we have regular Zoom meetings. We have speakers. We're having Somadas, our God brother in Alachua, this on the 11th of November. He was in New Vrindavan. He was a longtime resident there. On 2 occasions where Srila Prabhupada came, and he asked Kirtanananda, have you given land to the householders? Mm. And that's a really interesting point, and we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah, I'm in a men's group with him.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that. Yeah.
So how can they sign up for your newsletter?
Just go to
or mailing list.
speakingaboutvarnashram.com,
okay.
And you can sign up there. And you can also there download the Speaking About Varnashrama in a PDF form, or you can order the edition, the commemorative edition, the 50th anniversary of the Varnashrama talks. You can order it there from Amazon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming, Vani.
Yeah, and we can continue this discussion because, really it's about creating a model society. And that's what Varnashram, because who can create the most model society? The person who designed the entire creation and gave law books, gave exacting descriptions of how to organize society. That is all given in Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by Lord Krishna, spoken by God. So if we want to get the real understanding, we have to go to the source, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that includes all people from all traditions. People from all traditions can come together with this understanding, how to mold their life according to their natural tendency and offer their fruits for the satisfaction of God, for the betterment of human society.
Bingo bango.
Srila Prabhupada, it's often quoted, and I hear it on different days, that Srila Prabhupada came to build a house in which the whole world would live.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Now think about that for a second. That house is not ISKCON.
Right.
ISKCON is a Brahmanically oriented society. It will never be, even for persons that are in, even for Brahmanas, it's sometimes difficult to stay within ISKCON. Right. Varnashrama is that house.
Right. That's a beautiful point. So let's end on that point.
Okay.
So this is the house that the whole world can live in. Prabhupada stated that. That's what he came for. And he said that half of my mission is not completed, which is to complete this house. So you've spoken so eloquently on that, and we're very, very grateful. And as Garg said, we encourage people to go to your website, and let's continue this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of
The Eighth Element. And please like and subscribe to our podcast, and don't listen to him that that he hates when I say that.
No, I don't hate when you say that. I hate when people say that, but I realized after I said that, no, you got to promote yourself. So yeah, like, subscribe, or we will have to come after you. Thanks for joining us. Till next time.
Hare Krishna.
Living a simple life in a complicated world. It's like walking on a high wire while the crowd below you hurls. All those things that are meant to shake you, meant to break you, make you fall. Living a simple life's not such a simple thing.